The Shawnee people, aware of the impending threat, had scouts diligently tracking the movements of both British armies from the moment they departed. With this knowledge, Chief Cornstalk, the revered Shawnee leader, devised a strategic plan to prevent the British forces from combining their strength. Knowing that splitting their opponents would give them an advantage, Chief Cornstalk chose to attack the Southern Army first. On the night of October 9th, under a blanket of darkness, around 500 Shawnee warriors silently crossed the Ohio River, positioning themselves north of the Kanawha River to prepare for a dawn surprise attack. As dawn approached on October 10th, some militiamen, eager to supplement their limited rations, left the safety of their camp to hunt for fresh game. Just 2 miles from Point Pleasant, these soldiers unexpectedly encountered a large group of Shawnee warriors dispersed across a 5-acre field. Caught off guard, a brief skirmish ensued, and one soldier was killed. The others managed to flee back to camp, raising the alarm. Hearing the news, Colonel Andrew Lewis acted quickly, sending 2 detachments of 150 men each, under the belief that they were only facing a scouting party. But Chief Cornstalk, despite losing the element of surprise, resolved to launch a full-scale attack. This decision marked the beginning of the Battle of Point Pleasant, a fierce confrontation that would resonate through history as one of the pivotal battles in the region's turbulent struggle. To fully understand the impact of this battle, we must look back to the events leading up to it in the early 1700s. During this period, British colonizers had steadily moved westward, encroaching upon Native American territories. This expansion created tensions as colonial settlers sought to claim more land. In 1768, the Treaty of Fort Stanwix was signed, extending the colonial boundary westward into what are now the states of West Virginia and Kentucky. However, the Shawnee, along with other native tribes, had not participated in this treaty. Negotiated solely between British officials and the Iroquois Confederacy, the agreement neglected the rights of the Shawnee, who had long hunted and inhabited the rich lands of the Ohio Valley. For the Shawnee, this area held cultural, spiritual, and economic importance. For British settlers, it represented new opportunities for settlement and resource extraction. As British settlers continued pushing west, the Ohio Valley became a hotbed of conflict. Native tribes like the Shawnee fought to defend their homelands from encroachment, leading to mounting violence along the frontier. These skirmishes were not isolated incidents, but part of a broader struggle. By 1774, tensions had reached a boiling point, fueled by repeated clashes and the strategic importance of the land. As prominent figures in Virginia, including individuals like George Washington, had vested financial interests in Western territories, they sought to profit from land speculation. For Native Americans, however, these lands represented heritage and home rather than mere assets for profit. In response to the escalating conflict, Virginia's governor, Lord Dunmore, decided to take military action to quell Native resistance and secure Western expansion. He ordered 2 separate armies to advance into Shawnee territory north of the Ohio River. Colonel Andrew Lewis led the first force, consisting of about 1,000 men, marching from Camp Union, which is now present-day Lewisburg, West Virginia. Meanwhile, Lord Dunmore himself commanded a larger force of 1,700 men, advancing from Fort Pitt. As the 2 armies moved toward each other, the Shawnee scouts continued to track their every step, reporting back to Chief Cornstalk, who realized the severity of the threat. Understanding that once combined, these forces would be far more challenging to repel, he made a strategic decision to intercept and attack Lewis's Southern Army before the 2 could unite. On the night of October 9th, with a force of about 500 warriors, he led a bold crossing of the Ohio River, positioning his men above the Kanawha River, intent on striking before the soldiers could mount a defense. At dawn on October 10th, as the first light touched the landscape, the stage was set for a significant conflict. With the sound of gunfire echoing across the valley, the Battle of Point Pleasant began in earnest. In the intense clash that followed, both sides fought with tenacity, aware that the outcome would shape the future of the region. For the Shawnee, it was a fight for survival and the preservation of their way of life. For the British settlers, it was an opportunity to secure new lands and expand westward. The battle's ferocity underscored the deep-rooted tensions between the native tribes and the colonial forces. The Battle of Point Pleasant thus became a landmark moment in this broader conflict, symbolizing the resistance of Native American tribes against the relentless push of colonization. While ultimately costly for both sides, this battle exemplified the Shawnee's resilience and strategic acumen as they fought to protect their ancestral lands from foreign domination. Colonel Andrew Lewis acted swiftly upon receiving word of the Shawnee presence, immediately dispatching two contingents of 150 men each to drive back what he believed was merely a large Shawnee scouting party. However, Chief Cornstalk, despite losing the element of surprise, decided to strike against these smaller groups while the militia forces were still divided. His warriors outnumbered the militia on this front, and he knew it was a moment to seize. At dawn on October 10th, around 6:30 a.m., as the militia advanced along the river, the Shawnee launched a fierce ambush, striking hard and inflicting severe casualties on the lead ranks. Caught off guard, the eastern column of militiamen faltered, wavering under the Shawnee onslaught and pulling back. This retreat allowed the Shawnee to turn their fire on the western column, creating a sudden panic within the ranks. Colonel Lewis, hearing the intensity of the battle from camp as wounded men returned, quickly realized that this was no minor skirmish. He was facing a full-scale engagement he hadn't expected. To reinforce his line, Lewis sent forward an additional 200 colonial troops, who, along with other individual soldiers from the encampment, filled any gaps, forming a continuous defensive line stretching from the Ohio River on the left to the Canoe River on the right. As the Shawnee warriors pressed forward, the battle turned brutal. The dense fog and thick gun smoke cloaked the battlefield, adding an eerie tension to the morning. Each soldier and warrior found whatever cover they could behind rocks, trees, or stumps. In the chaos, hand-to-hand combat erupted as neither side would retreat. Rifles, muskets, tomahawks, knives, even bare hands were wielded in a desperate struggle. Chief Cornstalk's voice rang out over the clamor, urging his warriors with calls of "Be strong, be strong." Towering over his men and immediately recognizable, Cornstalk moved tirelessly across the battlefield, fighting with bravery that made him an elusive target despite militia attempts to take him down. The hours wore on, with each side advancing and retreating, neither willing to concede. The Shawnee warriors mocked the militia, calling out, "Why don't you whistle now?" a taunt at the fifes used to muster the soldiers. However, the Shawnee soon found themselves unable to flank the militia effectively, as the troops' positions by the rivers prevented a rear attack. Undeterred, Shawnee chiefs like Red Hawk, Blue Jacket, Black Hoof, Cornstalk, and his son rallied their men for bold, head-on charges, advancing through the dense bottomland filled with driftwood and rocks. By early afternoon, as the fog finally lifted, the militia gained an advantage. Their long rifles had superior range and accuracy over the Shawnee weapons, allowing for more effective shots as visibility improved. The intense hand-to-hand combat that had marked the morning hours gave way to more distant, strategic exchanges of fire. Despite their disadvantage, Chief Cornstalk made a daring decision. He chose to stand and fight, knowing full well the toll it would take on his forces. He reasoned that retreating would allow Lewis and Lord Dunmore to unite, a scenario that would leave the Shawnee with little chance of victory. Late in the afternoon, Colonel Lewis recognized an opportunity to turn the tide in his favor. He ordered 3 companies to maneuver and attempt a flanking move along the Shawnee line. Using the Canoe River as cover, these soldiers quietly withdrew from the front, moving in a wide arc under the riverbank's protection to encircle the Shawnee. This bold move aimed to break the Shawnee defense and bring the battle to a decisive end. As the hours passed, the intensity of the fighting began to fade. The Shawnee, under relentless pressure from Lewis's maneuver and the improved accuracy of the militia's rifles, gradually fell back to a second ridge running from the Ohio River to a swamp. By late afternoon, with gunfire slackening, the outcome of the Battle of Point Pleasant began to take shape. Chief Cornstalk, though outnumbered and facing superior firepower, had led his warriors with unmatched resilience and bravery, leaving a powerful legacy even as the Shawnee forces withdrew. In a strategic maneuver, the colonial forces turned up Crooked Creek and emerged from the stream onto a small ridge behind the Shawnee's left flank. From this unexpected position, they unleashed a sudden and forceful assault. The surprise attack shocked the Shawnee warriors, and Chief Cornstalk quickly recognized the shift in the battle's momentum. His scouts had informed him that another column of colonial forces was moving toward Point Pleasant, and he may have mistaken this flanking force for that second column. Assessing the situation, Cornstalk made the difficult decision to retreat, knowing that pressing forward might lead to greater losses. Cornstalk ordered his best warriors to stay behind, giving cover for the rest of his men to carry their wounded back across the Ohio River. Among the wounded was Cornstalk's own brother, Silverheels, who was seriously injured. In a poignant display of family loyalty, Silverheels was carried to safety by their sister, Non-Helima. The Shawnee handled their dead with traditional respect, releasing the fallen to the Ohio River as they began their skillful and orderly withdrawal into the forest on the far bank. By the time Lord Dunmore arrived at the colonial camp around midnight, he found a scene of chaos. The wounded soldiers were suffering tremendously, with limited medical help available to alleviate their pain. The battle had taken a toll on both sides, with many officers either killed or gravely injured. Although Colonel Lewis held the field by the end of the fighting, his forces had paid a heavy price, suffering around 75 deaths and another 140 injuries, a loss affecting nearly a quarter of his army. Shawnee losses were harder to determine, as they carried off most of their wounded and dead, but estimates placed their casualties around 50. Among those lost was Pucksinwah, the father of the future Shawnee leader Tecumseh, would later carry forward his people's fight. A week after the fierce encounter at Point Pleasant, Colonel Lewis and his soldiers, having rested and tended to their wounded, crossed the Ohio River and advanced northward. They marched to rendezvous with Lord Dunmore at Camp Charlotte, a fortified site near the main Shawnee towns on the Scioto River. Although Chief Cornstalk may have harbored a desire to continue resisting, the looming threat of facing both colonial armies was too great for the Shawnee leaders, and many chiefs chose to negotiate for peace. In late October, the Shawnee chiefs, including Cornstalk, signed the Treaty of Camp Charlotte. Cornstalk agreed to release all white prisoners held by the tribes and vowed that his people would refrain from hunting south of the Ohio River or attacking boats traveling along it. In return, Dunmore promised that no more settlers would enter Kentucky and that none would attempt to settle north of the Ohio River. Though many knew that such peace agreements were often temporary, for now, the battle had concluded. The Virginia militiamen returned home, and the Shawnee and other native people returned to their villages, reflecting on the sacrifice and resilience shown in the face of encroaching forces. Thank you for watching the video until the end. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any new videos from us. What do you think about today's topic? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found the video helpful, feel free to share it with your friends and family. We hope you had a great time. See you in the next video with even more exciting content. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out.